Hi people, and welcome to my program again this week. And today in the studios we actually have a private hire taxi firm this week, and we're going to be talking about the self-employed. We're going to be talking our people who are taxi drivers. Now, according to the statistics, there's about 25% of Muslim men, Pakistani men, are employed within this industry. And for quite some time, it's been a couple of months now, I've been thinking about bringing in a taxi firm that is actually innovating in this field. And I want to talk about some of the challenges that are happening within this industry, especially with our young graduates. But what we'll do first is I'll introduce Nasir Mansha, who's from Albatross Cars, Derby, and welcome him to the studio, people. So, hello Nasir.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. So how are you today?
I'm brilliant, thank you. Nice for having me here today, thank you.
No problems. What we'd like to say is that the private hire taxi industry is actually worth about £5 billion or thereabouts. It fluctuates between 5 to 8 billion, I believe, and those were the figures that I was getting, from Google and all the rest of it. And what it is, in the UK, especially for all our international viewership, we actually have something called hackney carriages, and we have private hire minicabs, and people use all kinds of different words to describe taxis, and sometimes get muddled between the both. But there is actually a reason why there's two separate names being used within the UK. So, Nasir, can you just talk about what the differences are? Because it just seems really technical, or is it more than that?
Well, there's a numerous of differences. I mean, with the private hire, what the customers have to do is pre-book for the taxis. They have to have an advance booking. Okay, they can't pick up open public. I mean, that's one of the primarily examples. And the difference between the hackney is, with the hackney, there's 3 points. I mean, one is they can pick up openly. They can pick up open public. Okay, they have the option to operate on the telephones, but majority of them choose not to.
So you can just flag them down in the street, isn't it? You just put your hand out and they stop.
That's right. And secondly, they have a wheelchair access, where the private hire don't have that facility. Okay, so they have that facility available. And thirdly, the third point I want to mention was they have they've got the 6-seater available. Obviously their license to carry 6 passengers, 5 to 6 passengers, where obviously with the private hire you're allowed to carry 4 passengers, excluding the minibuses. Okay, with the minibuses, obviously we're allowed to carry up to 16 passengers, but I'm talking about more the private hire vehicles.
Fab, and we're just generally talking about saloons and vehicles.
That's right, saloon, hatch vehicles, that's right.
Yeah, but this industry is so heavily regulated, and there's about 250 different pieces of legislation. There's a lot of laws that govern this. Is there a reason for this?
Yeah, it's never ending. Obviously, they look at the safety and security of all public, so they have to be very careful in how they pick the laws. Okay, I mean, one of the laws from the Derby City Council that applies to Albatross Cars is, the drivers have to be CRB approved, so they have to first apply for a CRB. Okay, once they've obviously been approved on their CRB, okay, secondly, they have to have a knowledge test. Okay, they have to pass their knowledge test and have score 75% or more in order for them to obviously get a badge.
Can I just ask one question right there? I mean, some of our Pakistani drivers, their English is their second language, and some of them sometimes struggle with their English language. So how do they pass these tests, out of curiosity?
Well, the Derby City Council has introduced the NVQ level 2. Okay, that covers in the legislation. So now, because of these complications that taxi drivers have, and regular complaints coming forward to the Derby City Council from the random public, that's why they introduced this NVQ level 2 that takes care and obviously troubleshoots the problem.
Is that mandatory?
That's right, it's mandatory, yeah. I mean, it's part of the criteria where if after the knowledge test, they have to have an NVQ level 2 in customer service. They have to pass this. Because
I know that all city councils have their own policies on this, so it's all a bit of a, mess, because you have one city council with its own policy, you have the next city council also with its own set of policies and stuff.
Well, it's a thing called bylaws. I mean, the government as a whole has got a law itself. Okay, then obviously it leaves it to the local authorities to deal with the local laws. So with the bylaws, I mean, obviously the Derby City Council obviously looks at the most beneficial for the public, and obviously how to make it better for everybody.
We've talked a lot about passenger safety and the safety of the public, but what about the safety of the drivers? Are there laws that protect the drivers?
Well, with the hackney, they've got more or less a barrier that defends, where obviously it segregates themselves from the passenger, okay? That's more Derby City Council approved. With the private hire, we don't have a barrier. Okay, we have certain deterrents in place, which is number one is CCTV, okay? Number two, we have a panic button, so if there's any complications in the vehicles, okay, they have access to a panic button where obviously, you know, if there is by chance a problem, they can obviously, you know, press the button, and obviously it appears on all screens and where all the drivers come for assistance.
And that's how you deal with abusive passengers?
Absolutely, yeah, it's straightforward. Yeah,
No,
these are the systems that we have in place, okay? And thirdly, the controller in the switchboard, he receives a message from the driver every time he presses the panic button. He realizes there's danger. So what happens is obviously he gives confirmation to the driver to see if everything is fine, if everything is okay. So in that aspect, just for a courtesy call, sometimes by mistake, you don't want all drivers going there, but more or less of the time, drivers do get stuck and press the panic button, and that's where obviously the switchboard is notified and all drivers come for assistance.
That is great, because you know in the past there were lots of reports and actual taxi drivers were being a target, were being targeted for abuse. So we're glad that all these measures have been introduced for driver safety.
Yeah, I mean, taxi drivers in general, I'd say they're more vulnerable than the passengers. Because I mean, a lot of the time in the nights when you're picking up passengers, you know, you're picking up with intoxicated passengers, the level of judgment is not neutral. And I mean, you know, 9 times out of 10, I mean, when they're ringing up from pubs or clubs or social clubs, you know, they expect the driver to go inside. But obviously, we've cured that problem through technology. Okay, technology has made it easier, made it more simpler, and process our processes much faster. Okay, so it's made it very easy, I mean, for the whole organisation to move forward.
I mean, you're in direct competition with public transport as well.
Yeah.
So is the city councils fair when they set regulations? Because obviously they're taking care of public transport and all these eco emissions are, you know, from cars and stuff. So
I mean, with public transport, I mean, the laws are pretty much fair. I mean, there's a few things that we can tweak on. I mean, for example, the Hackney, I mean, they're allowed to go on bus lanes, but the private hire are restricted in that area. Okay, but the way I see it is, I mean, it's the same horse but different jockey.
I mean, from the research I did, about, like I said earlier, 25% of Pakistani Muslim men are involved in the taxi trade. But you know what, people, you know, when you look around and you look in all the major cities and you actually take, you know, just a head glance at all the taxi drivers that are stood in the rank, they all seem to appear Asian or Pakistani or Muslim. And so I don't think these figures are accurate to start off with. Now, why are there so many people from the Pakistani community turning towards this trade? Is it an easy way of making money, or are there other reasons for this?
I think more or less it's to do with networking. I think number one is networking, and number two is the flexibility in this job opportunity with taxi driving. I mean, with taxi driving, you're not restricted to particular hours where you're working from 9 and you know, you finish at 5 or you work a night shift. With the taxi driving, you know, you're self-employed, so you're flexible. You can start when you want, you can finish when you want. Okay, so more or less, I think it's the flexibility, and also, you know, it brings in fast money. So these are, you know, these are the main areas that why it's attracting a lot of the Asian community.
I mean, there was a question that we had actually on Facebook from some of our international viewers, and one of them actually put this question: are they allowed to use international driving licenses? What are the implications for drivers? Can they use an international license, or does it have to be a UK?
It has to be a UK driving license. I mean, the Derby City Council, where we're based in Derby, is very strict on laws when it comes to that area. So it has to be Derby City Council approved. Okay, I mean, there was a dispute few months, about 6 months ago, in regards to Gedling Borough Council. I mean, Gedling Borough Council were issuing badges where they seen a loophole in the law where it stated that anybody can drive anywhere in any company, okay, yeah, without a knowledge test. Okay, but obviously through the research with the Derby City Council, okay, the Derby City Council did not approve of that. Okay, and now even the Gedling Borough Council realised, you know, how do they know if the car is roadworthy? And they find, you know, they realise, even though they found a loophole in the council where it enables everybody to go for the badge without a knowledge test, it's becoming more dangerous. Okay, so now that they've looked into it, and obviously it's been withdrawn, and they have to go through the channels, just like every other council.
I mean, what's really alarming as well is that when you do this head glance, people, and you look at, you know, the kind of people that are employed, you're actually now, in the last couple of years, seeing an alarming number of, I would say, young graduates coming into this trade. And so, Nasir, you know, what do you think the reason for that is? Is the economic recession that bad that we have young graduates turning to this? Because I looked at some figures, and I do, you know, quite a considerable amount of research before, you know, I do the programme. And there were some facts somewhere saying that there's about 10,000 graduates that are unemployed, and even more so than that. And with the top 200 firms in the UK, they have roughly on average about 70 graduates chasing each vacancy. And they actually, 10,000 people are actually graduates are actually going into labouring type of jobs like cleaners and rubbish bin collectors. And that is what's happening with 10,000 graduates out there, because times have, you know, had hit really, really hard.
Wow, it's amazing. I mean, I realise, you know, a lot of graduates, you know, with such high qualifications, they're not getting what they put in for. Okay, it's because, I mean, this recession is not really helping anybody at the moment. I mean, especially with the graduates. One of the reasons is because a lot of the companies, you know, they're cutting back on costs, okay, on employment, okay, because obviously that growth and that demand is not there no more, okay. But I mean, with Albatross Cars, I mean, you see, through our business development, okay, this is where we subcontract with sublet companies in order for us to give opportunity to apprentices. Okay, I mean, there's a new government scheme out now. I mean, that's given the 8-week free work trial experience, and we've also obviously liaising with the Job Centre Plus in regards to that, to give people opportunity in terms of experience, to gain that experience and to help them to get an adequate professional job.
Now we've come on to the really interesting bit, people, and that is the work that Albatross Cars do actually themselves. So let's talk about the opportunities that you give to young people, and let's talk about your social media. What's happening there? Because it's absolutely fab, the kind of stuff that you're doing on your social media, especially your YouTube. Because I was sat there watching all these YouTube videos.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. I mean, this is a social media culture now. We're living in social media times. I mean, and it brings us more closer to people, you know, in social media. For example, Facebook. I mean, the average person's got 500 to 600 friends on Facebook, on YouTube. I mean, now you give a piece of literature to somebody, they don't want to read. Okay, I mean, they say, you know, pictures are equivalent to 1,000 words. Now everybody wants entertainment value. So we looked at these sources and we see what was most effective, and we thought we could utilize these sources for marketing experiences, okay? And with marketing now, it's very, very effective. It's unbelievable. You know, we've put up, it's just phenomenal. We put on so many videos, and the amount of hits and the awareness that it's creating is unbelievable. It's phenomenal.
Because the things that quite stuck to my mind when I was watching them, well, there were about 2 or 3 videos. Some of them were like comic strips. So it was like, you know, a fast Albatross car, you know, coming in your direction. And the other particular video was where you actually had, you know, your drivers coming out from behind a tree and introducing each of their particular vehicles. You know, there was like the Beast or the Hulk.
That's right.
These cars had names.
That's right. I mean, we're trying to make it quirky. What we've done is, I mean, YouTube itself is entertainment value. Everybody's on it. You know, the amount of attention it's creating is unbelievable. So we thought we'd utilize it and take advantage of this source. I mean, what we've done with the YouTube is we've justified our services on YouTube. For example, the minibus video is number 1. Okay, with the minibus videos, we made a little bit quirky, where obviously we gave name to drivers. We affiliated it with their vehicle colours and obviously their personalities. For example, there's the Beast. Okay, Waj Hussain. Okay, he's most popular in Derby. Okay, and he's known to be the Beast. And now, not just the Beast, it's even the Hulk, for example. Is affiliated with this character and personality. We've got the Red Dragon, we've got our Bumblebee, you know, and now what it's done is it's created a celebrity attention for our drivers. It's unbelievable. I mean, now when they're going out working, people call them by their quirky names, and it builds entertainment and awareness, so it's good overall.
Now that is, people, what you call serious amount of marketing going on there. So it's really fab the way you've endorsed and taken on board the social media and fully exploited it, for your company. So where did this idea come about to use social media in this way? Because there's hardly any taxi firms out there that are quite doing this. Some of their websites are pretty good, and some of them have a huge fleet of cars boasting around 600 or 400 and all the rest of it. But when you look at their websites, they're pretty good. But when you go into their social media, it's virtually non-existent. So I'd just like to know what made you come into the social media field. What made you enter this?
Well, we realized with the social media is where a lot of the attention is, okay? And we realized they're very effective sources, okay? And through our market research, we realized there's no taxi company in the East Midlands, okay, using this source. It's unreal, and we thought to ourselves, so much demand, so much publicity, so much attention, we need to take advantage. We've tried all sorts of marketing. We thought, we'll try it, let's test the waters. It could be good, it could be bad, but you don't know unless you don't try. So we thought we utilize this source, but after utilizing it, and still we're utilizing it today, it's very effective, and the growth and the demand is just crazy. I
mean, they have definitely got a magic about their social media, and one of the ones is Facebook, because when I was looking at that, there was this yellow, bright, luminous little car there, and what they were asking, they had captions saying, what would you call this car? And I actually wrote there, I think I wrote, it reminds me of, Batman's Batmobile or something.
That's right.
So, on their Facebook, they have pictures of different cars, and then you can, as a Facebook user, you can go on there and actually start naming some of your vehicles. So have you had any quirky names being put up by any of your fan base?
Yeah, we've had a lot of quirky names. As I've mentioned, we've had the minibus drivers as the fleet video, as you've mentioned, the Hulk, the Beast, the Red Dragon, the White Lion. We've had the Polar Bear. There's quite a few quirky names. And when it's quirky, people want to look into something that's quirky. Okay, when they realize, hold on a minute, let's find out what this is all about, and because it's not normal, it's abnormal. We want to look into it and find out.
It gets people's attention. That's for sure.
It just grabs people's attention, and and it works, and it shows that we're doing something right. Because this source of marketing is very effective. Very effective.
I understood, when I was reading some of your literature on your website and stuff, is that you're actually looking for social media experts and stuff to come forward. You actually offer opportunities?
Absolutely. I mean, there's opportunities are growing as the company is growing. I mean, Albatross Cars itself is growing. So opportunities are growing, the development is growing, and the awareness is growing. Okay, so it all put together. We're becoming, we're just escalating onto another level. So even for like apprentices, okay, for people that want to come into new industries like IT, software development. I mean, we have our own in-house IT, software development, hardware development. We do web development, okay, and we do graphics designs, and we do so much. It's unbelievable, and there's so much, departments within our company. I mean, if you were to look at a taxi company this day and age, people think taxi company, and it's more or less not very highly spoken, but obviously with Albatross Cars, we've took it to another level. Okay, it's not just a taxi company. Okay, it's I'll say we specialize in logistics, we specialize in IT, and we've created so many different departments. It's unreal. I mean, that's why now, as the company's grown, opportunities have grown. And it shows that today something is done right.
And it's not just 10% star discount for students, it's also 10% for people who work in supermarkets and the NHS and a few others. So they do have categorized, some of the work that you do, which was really good to see for the amount of, work that you're actually generating, especially reviving the economy. And one of the things is, Nasir, that when you look at taxi drivers, especially in the media image actually portrays Muslims and especially Pakistani men in a very bad light. And should there be, a taxi driver and they've committed some kind of offence, well, that makes double the bad news story. So how do you cover that as working in the taxi industry? How do you protect your drivers from, negative reports which are coming constantly?
Well, now what we've done is we set up deterrents. We've got CCTV, we've got an in-house complaints procedure. We obviously open for public's views. We have a text-back system. Obviously, that gives a reference to customers to let them know about the services. Okay, so as we've introduced technology within our company, obviously it's made it easier, not just for Albatross Cars itself, even for its consumers. Okay, it's made it very easy. So for example, by off chance they've got a complaint of a particular driver, Okay, they have a reference on their text, on their mobile phones, just to let, obviously with the make, model, registration of the vehicle, where obviously they can put a reference through to the switchboard and obviously put forward the nature of the complaint.
That is really good to hear. And what I'd like to talk to you about, Nasir, is the name of your company, Albatross. Where did that come about?
Albatross Cars, well, Albatross is an ocean bird.
Okay.
It's the biggest flying bird, okay, and it travels the longest distance, so it's known for its size as well. So today Albatross Cars is one of the Derby's #1 leading private hire companies. Okay, so we live up to its honour.
One of the things I wanted to say to you, that your company has been around for about 20 years now, so you must have seen a lot of changes during that time. So Nasir, can you just talk about some of the changes I've seen, because now sophisticated systems have come in where you're talking about tech stack and social media, and how technologies has really informed the industry. But before you can answer that, it's break time, people. Crucially, like we do when we ask our interesting questions. So please do join me after the break. Hi and welcome back to my program, people, and thank you for joining me again. And we had a crucial question, like we do, but just before I get into my question, again, we have Nasir Mansha from Albatross Cars Derby in the studio today. We're actually focusing the spotlight on self-employed taxi drivers within the UK, and there's a reason for this, and that's because a high number of Pakistani graduate males are struggling to find work. In fact, there are statistics to suggest that this year, 10,000 graduates were actually looking for elementary type of jobs, such as cleaning, labouring, and taking out rubbish and stuff. So it's really alarming what's going on. And what's actually happening with Albatross Cars is they're actually utilising the skills of graduates within their industry and actually innovating in a way that no other company, taxi firm, is actually doing at all. So we've been talking about their social media content and their YouTube and the way they do things. And my next question was, they've actually been around for 20 years and obviously must have seen a lot of changes that have been going through the taxi industry. So, Nasir, can we just pick up where we left off, and would you like to talk about what's been going on over the last 20 years within the industry?
Within the 20 years of the industry, the taxi industry has changed big time. Many years ago, even in terms of marketing, the traditional ways of marketing and the marketing now, there's a big difference. Back then, in order to have a taxi or to book a taxi, there were many processes in place. It was too complicated, or it would take minutes. Okay, but now, ever since technology has been introduced, with Albatross Cars, since we've had technology within our company, the processes are much faster. It takes seconds just to book a taxi. Since we've introduced now when a customer rings Albatross Cars, due to the taxi dispatch system, okay, the processes are much faster. Okay, now the computer identifies the number, obviously the number, the consumer, the history of where from pickup point to destination. So it's made it so much easier and fast and simpler in order for us to book a taxi and provide that service. Okay.
So how did you come about 20 years ago? What were the first foundations?
20 years ago, I remember, my father is a very old businessman, and we've been in many businesses before this taxi industry. We've been in the catering business, insurance business, we've been in the butcher business, we've been in retail, wholesaling, we've been in many businesses. We've been shadowing our father throughout the years since we were kids. And we're not really educated. I say, it's a lot self-initiative and practical experience has brought us where we are today, and from our father's practical experience and wisdom and, nobleness. And obviously today where we are, from zero to heroes. I remember when we first bought the company, we had 15 cars, and now from 15 cars, we've increased up to over 200 vehicles now, and we're still escalating on our drivers. We're still improving. We're still,
So Nasir, if we had taxi drivers out watching this program today, what actually makes, from a driver's point of view, one taxi firm better than the next?
Well, a driver can justify through networking and through awareness and publicity, which taxi company, you know, is so different from the rest. So for example, separating the men from the boys, I'll say, okay, a taxi company, Albatross Cars, you know, we're number one in quality, we're number one in service, we're number one in technology. So we got a lot of advantages, a lot of qualities, okay. We can put a lot on the table and offer to all our consumers out there, okay, not just consumers, even to drivers. We have systems in place, okay. We have a very big network in the house, okay, very organized and professional company. And obviously not just internal, external, and everything is just you know, self-explanatory. It's all, you know, speaks for itself.
You know, there are a lot of businesses watching today, Nasir, and what they'd like to know is that there's usually contracts going for taxi firms to pick up some of their customers or their clients, you know, from their business premises. So all those businesses watching us today, and if they're not happy with their taxi firm, what should they do, or what should they be looking for in the next taxi company?
Well, my best advice is obviously to look at the fleet size, obviously go on their websites, obviously look into their qualities, their service, look at the testimonials, obviously have a direct meeting with the companies, obviously see how organized they are, how professional they are, how dynamic they are, and obviously to see if they can fulfill and deliver their aim and purpose and accomplish that.
You know, the other thing is that, you know, the rising cost of petrol and diesel, doesn't your industry really suffer from that?
Well, even though the insurances have gone very high, you know, it's increased, and also the fuel has gone very high as well. So it's affected a lot of our drivers, but still, we as a taxi company have still maintained our prices on a neutral level and very competitive, are able to provide that same service.
You know, there's a lot of like journeys that commuted on taxis, and I think it's about 700 million journeys were taken by passengers, which is about, I think, 3.5 billion miles. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about hybrid cars, and especially the Nissan Previous or something, and that's where they use hybrid type of fuel. So do you have many cars that fall into that category?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of drivers are looking into this. I mean, it's very cost effective. I mean, there's nothing negative that you can say about hybrid vehicles. I mean, they're environmental friendly, obviously, and they're carbon kind, they're very fuel efficient, okay, it's low tax on it, low maintenance on it. I mean, you can't speak anything negative about hybrid vehicles. I mean, it's all taken to your own advantage.
You know, I'd like to ask a question on behalf of all our viewers, because this was actually posted to me again on Facebook. And one of the queries that one of our viewers had on Facebook was, you know, when the driver deliberately takes the long route, and you know they're deliberately taking the long route to your, point of a destination, what should the passenger do?
I mean, now with Albatross Cars, through technology, what we've done is we've created a lot of facilities. Okay, we've created a lot of services. Now, if they were to go on www.albatrosscars.com, okay, and to go on our taxi fare calculator, okay, that gives them an estimated calculation of our pickup point to destination. So now, if they were to go live with Albatross Cars, they should know through an estimated calculation of what they're expecting to pay.
I mean, it's been brought to my attention, and this is one aspect of the taxi industry, for a lot of our married females, out there watching this program, and that is that they feel that the taxi industry has a bit of a reputation because some of the drivers are exposed to a little bit of extra temptation. What is your message to all our female audience watching us today?
Well, you can say that about any trade. I mean, you're dealing with a multicultural society and multicultural atmospheres, and you can't blame the taxi industry for personal marriage breakdowns. I mean, one individual action, you can't blame the trade. I mean, you should blame the individual for that. I mean, what's the trade? I mean, the trade is providing an opportunity, it's providing you with chance, it's giving you benefits and advantages in order for you to make your bread and butter. Okay, it's not giving you any negative energy. I mean, if one driver is to perform in a negative manner, how can you blame the taxi industry for your marriage breakdown? It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, there's a lot of women that might disagree with that one, right. Because the thing is that a lot of the Pakistani men, through one reason or another, especially when they can't find jobs, are employed within the taxi industry. So therefore it just seems like, if they were all employed in another industry, then obviously it would be the next industry, having that kind of reputation. So what is your message to drivers who do fall into temptation? What would you say to them today?
Well, It's a thing called moral dimension. I mean, you know, you're meant to have morals and principles. Okay, you can't blame the job. You can be a cleaner. You can be working in a catering trade, a butcher. You can be working in an insurance company. In this current society, you're dealing with multicultural societies. Even with taxi drivers, they're picking up, you know, females, males, you know. But you can't blame the trade. I mean, because the driver is responsible for his own actions. Okay. Use it in the right way, don't abuse it or you lose it, yeah, in that aspect. So this is what I don't understand. I mean, having morals and principles and moral dimensions, you can't go wrong in whatever you do in life. And also, Islam also teaches us this, you know, to keep your gaze down. So I strongly disagree with the marriage breakdowns because of this taxi industry. It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you for taking the time to answer the question, but it had to be asked because I had so many viewers, you know, putting this question forward to me. So thank you for taking the time to answer that one. But you know, last week it was Eid, and you know, being a Muslim company, if all your drivers sign off for the day, how do you cope with that?
Well, with Eid, we're a very organised company and very professional in that area. We're well prepared. We're dealing with multicultural drivers, so we have sufficient amount of drivers to cover us on our festival Eid. Okay, like it's Christmas. I mean, on Christmas the Muslims, okay, they cover, okay, for the non-Muslims, okay, and for Eid, obviously the other nationalities and other beliefs, they cover us, you know, in the same way. Likewise, they cover us on our Eid festival. So it's balanced. So we kind of juggle it. So it's well prepared and organised.
I mean, where do you actually see the future of the taxi industry? Because there's a lot of talk of deregulation. So what does that mean for companies such as yourself?
Well, if there's change, you have to go with change. You have no choice. Whatever decision is made, and obviously, you know, you have to go with the flow, basically.
Okay, you know what it is, people, as well, within the taxi industry there's actually a lot of scope for innovation, and I would really hope that everybody that's watching this program today, especially if you're either a taxi driver or a taxi firm, they do actually move this industry forward, because otherwise we're in a double dip recession, and with the prices of fuel rising constantly, and with the amount of government legislation coming in, and also with the introduction of hybrid cars, because you've got to understand with the economic policy that's being made for the reduction of carbon emissions, if you don't work towards reducing the carbon footprint, then is there a chance, Nasir, that they might just go out of business in that way if they don't reduce their carbon emission as a taxi firm?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not mandatory. It's not
at the moment.
Yeah, it's not a legislation. Okay, what drivers are realizing, I mean, through the costs involved, obviously running a normal private hire vehicle that are running on diesel and running a hybrid vehicle, you're saving a lot of money. So on the long run, it's going to benefit you anyway. So I think a lot of drivers' attention is going towards the environmental friendly vehicles.
If you had a message for the government today on behalf of all the taxi drivers and taxi firms, what would that actually be?
Well, to communicate at all times with taxi companies about the plus and minuses of the industry and about the new laws that obviously are taking place.
Do you think they do that well at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the only dispute we have, I mean, is with the Hackney vehicles. I mean, with the Hackney vehicles, obviously they can drive through bus lanes where the private hire can't drive through bus lanes, and that's the only difference at the minute. So we're restricted in that area. But if we could obviously have equal opportunity, you know, that'd be great, because end of the day, you know, we're the same horse but different jockeys. So in that area, I don't understand why we can't have that same opportunity.
We're now coming up to the end of our program, people, because we're always like, you know, having not enough time for anything that we ever want to discuss here. So on a final note, Nasir, you know, what is your message to all our viewers today, and especially, you know, the young graduates that are watching today and feeling quite inspired by, you know, the opportunities that your company is offering? What would you like to say to them on a final note?
Well, for all the viewers and all the graduates out there, there's plenty of opportunities. Obviously, with Albatross Cars, we're a growing business. We have a lot of opportunities in a lot of departments for businesses. If you want to set up accounts, contracts with Albatross Cars, dial 01332 345 345, or simply email us for any queries, any suggestions, or anything that you want to put forward on info@albatrosscars.co.uk. And to find out about Albatross Cars, deeply, and you want to look inside how the operation runs with Albatross Cars, just simply go on our website on www.albatrosscars.co.uk. And also you can join us on our Facebook as well and become a friend, and obviously find out about our promotional offers. About we give free tickets for taxi fares. Also we have an online game for all our consumers.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got
Okay.
to stop you right there.
No
We're
problem.
literally running out of time right now, but people do continue to watch and support our program. And like I announced last week, we do have the chief exec of a leading UK bank appearing on this program in just a few weeks. So do keep watching, and see you this time next week.